And I eventually left that company, and I still, kept in touch with people that were there on the team and whatnot. And the one guy that was left on the team, he told me, he goes, "Hey, we're finally like doing the cleanup." He's like, "Well, I'm actually doing the cleanup." And I said, "Oh, okay. Let me know how it goes." And like 18 months later, he says, "I finally got done. Like now we're running really efficiently." And I mean, we had so many issues with the solution just because it was running so inefficiently. You would make a change and it would take 2 to 4 hours for that change to actually like take place unless you went into the SQL database and like manually triggered it.
Wow.
It's like, guys, you understand that this is like a really bad way to interact with a SQL database.
So, okay, well, clearly you are of a futurist mind, you can tell with your quantum and this. It is very hard to make the case for a lot of executives in traditional organizations. And that is unfortunately because they are just really dealing at the fire drill level. I mean, I know thinking a little bit about the future opens a little bit more capacity. I guess if I were to have to pitch this, I think maybe the most successful way to pitch this would be about increasing internal resiliency. Increase the resiliency of your systems, right? Because in the example you brought up, the tool product wasn't running efficiently. And I don't know if something had broken or gone wrong, maybe it would have been really bad, right?
Which
Whereas
had
if you just
happened.
yeah, well, if you just like done a little bit of cleanup, just allocate a little bit of time to do some of these proactive resilience building things, then you're going to be able to absorb and recover faster from, stuff that might come in to try to knock it off. And I think that's like so much of for profit organizations are just like maximizing the efficiency so much for profit. And when you're maximizing for efficiency, you are taking away from resiliency. And efficiency is great because boom, it does that one thing really efficient. But efficient things are also fragile and not always flexible. And so if something in the world or the system or whatever breaks the thing that this is made efficient for, you've lost all of it. And so I think it's really interesting that maybe we're seeing a little bit of coming back to some resilience, desire for resiliency. And I think like governments and the military maybe get a bad rap for not being very efficient, but they are very resilient. And I
Highly
do,
resilient.
and they have to be. And like military and government, they do think about the future because the future of the country, the future of democracy, the future of capitalism, free market capitalism, like that's all stuff that, United States protects, not just the borders. It protects our belief with freedom, thinking, like that kind of stuff. And that enables capitalism. And so I do think that, like, I've worked both in private sector for big companies, trans global companies, for startups. I've worked on government projects. I've done European government work. I think there is a lot that United States private sector could learn about resiliency from government versus putting private sector fragile efficiency, forcing that on government. Do you think some government stuff can be streamlined? And I think we are starting to see some of that with the adoption of new like identity technologies. It takes forever, but that's what you get with resiliency. And bureaucracy also generally has a level of transparency in the leadership levels, and even military has transparency, like, you know, the route you're going to take to get promoted, or what you need to do to be promoted. It's not secret. You don't always know that in the private sector. Like, you might be like, why'd that person get promoted versus someone else? So it's interesting to see how these different agencies, organizations work, like the private sector corporation versus like a government agency. And what's more focused on security. Security is a cost area for private sector. For government, no, that's just part of. And military, that is what it is. It's security in a way. So I think understanding all of that, yeah, and learning, like it's not like one is better or worse. It's not like capitalism is bad, but and it's not like AI or quantum or humans or technology is bad. It's about knowing what's the best tool for the job. And sometimes the human's the best tool for the job, and sometimes technology is the best tool for the job. And sometimes having a free market is a great way to get great new products. And sometimes you need like, a very resilient base to have security for everyone.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you bring up resiliency, right? Because I mean, obviously, I don't plan anything, right? So we didn't plan to talk about resiliency or anything like that. But yesterday, AWS had probably their biggest outage ever that
Mhm.
impacted something like 80% of the internet.
Mhm.
So like for most of the users, it was 100% of the internet
Mhm.
that was affected. And it is so just absurd to me how many people just fully rely on AWS US East 1 and put all their stuff into it when AWS makes it actually pretty easy for you to make your things redundant across regions. Like it's not terribly difficult. And I talk about it all the time, right? Because, a couple years ago, I actually got the AWS security specialist certification. There's
Mhm.
a whole section in there that just drills into high availability, redundancy, disaster recovery. And I mean, you have to know those topics inside and out with AWS. Like you have to be able to, be presented with a failure somewhere and say, yeah, it's a failure there, but we have to look at this problem all the way over here that no one else would look at, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And the government actually does an extremely good job of this. And I tell this example before because early on in my career, I managed all of our government clients for the company that I was working for. And so that included me going on site to some really cool places that, the public doesn't even realize that are there, And
You
so
gotta have your fingerprint scanned to get in.
that's like the lowest tier facility that I was at, right? So, I mean, at this one facility, I was in the middle of the mountains and I think it was like West Virginia. And, like it's this facility just tucked away in between mountains. It's a giant facility. And, I'm walking through and I'm asking my handler, I was like, why is there so many people here? Because like the building is literally as long as you can see, right? Like you
Mhm.
can stand at one end and not see the other end. And there's these huge modules of people. I mean, rows of like 50 to 100 people in each row. And I said, like, is everyone really working on something different here? And he goes, yes and no. All of us in the same row have the same skill set. We can do each other's job with no issue. It's not really a big deal. But we are all working on different things and we don't know what the other one's working on. But if they came over to one of us and was like, hey, the guy across the aisle from you, is no longer with us. You have to do his job and the stuff that you are doing. This is what it is. All of them can do it. And within each module, they're only working with one tech stack, and the tech stack overall is servicing the underlying infrastructure of whatever servers and data they're protecting and whatnot. Well, each module has its own completely separate tech stack. So for instance, one module will have an avaya phone system. The entire thing will be avaya, and it will be scaled to the point where everyone on the building could run off of this phone system, but only one module is actually running off of it. And then the next one over is all of the competitors of that tech stack, all of them. Cisco, everyone is in that next one. And then it just keeps on going down because to them, they're like, we're going to have high availability, high resiliency across absolutely everything. We're going to get the top 5 products in every single category that we need for a tech stack. We're going to buy them all and we're going to deploy them all. We're going to hire the experts in. They're going to be in
Mhm.
house. Like that's the sort of stuff, right, that like organizations should be thinking of. Like when I go into that building and they're asking me how high availability works from a product, and then they're asking me what's the limitation of it, their response to me was, okay, well, let's do 5-tier high availability for each module, right? So we're going to put 25 of your servers in here. They're all going to be servicing different modules. We'll have 5 tiers of high availability, and they did not care what the cost was. Like it was just
Mhm.
straight up didn't care. Send it over, and at the end of the year, they would always ask me, "Is there anything else I could buy from you?" And I'm just sitting here like, guys, you buy literally every single SKU SKU we have. There isn't
Mhm.
another thing you can buy." And they're like, "Well, can we buy more of it?"
They
Okay.
probably had extra budget. I think that's probably one of the things that was, like, really so surprising to me because I kinda started the early part of my career working for startups, and all the folks that started the startups, the founders, they all came from the same tech private sector area. And then I did some projects for the government, and it feels like it's not efficient. And in fact, for a while, I was like involved with developing and designing decentralized identity, which was a new type of technology designed for privacy, private data sharing and securing and stuff like that. But there was a whole division inside of DHS that was looking to fund startups developing this technology, and their attitude wasn't, we're going to just pick one. Their attitude was like, we want to support the development of this industry. So we're going to give money